Call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to the City of Kalispell's January 16, 2024 council meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councillor Graham.
Here.
Councillor Dowd.
Here.
Councillor Dahlman. Here. Councillor Fisher.
Here.
Councillor Hunter.
Here.
Councillor Nunnally.
Here.
Councillor Carlson. Here. Councillor Gabrielle.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Nunnally, can you please sing it for us tonight?
No, I won't say.
Oh, okay.
All pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was beautiful.
Okay. Agenda approval. Look for council for approval. Mr. Dowd.
Your Honor, I move the agenda as published.
Second.
Oh, man. We'll give that to Ms. Carlson.
There you go.
All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Two items on the consent agenda this evening. The first item are the council minutes from the December 18, 2023 and the January 2, 2024 meetings. And the second item is approval of change order for 2023 Kalispell Tank and Wells Project. This item considers a change order for $95,374.83 to S&L Underground Incorporated for Schedule 4 of this project. Is there any public comment on either of the two items on the consent agenda? Look, council for a motion. Mr. Nunnally?
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as approved, as submitted.
Second.
Second, thank you, Ms. Gabriel. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We have no committee report this evening, so at this point in time, I'm going to move to public comments. Ask any member of the public who wants to give comment on items not on the agenda this evening or to step forward, state your name and give council your comments. Hello.
My name's Sarah Harding.
Go ahead, right up to the microphone, please, Ms. Harding.
Hello.
We're casual, but
Not that
we got to use the
casual.
microphone.
My name's Sarah Harding, and I'm the new owner of Kalispell Community Thrift in the Scandinavian Methodist Church on the corner of 5th Avenue West. And I'm applying for a state grant to preserve the building through the Department of Commerce. So it will be not this legislature, but next legislature. And I'm just gathering support letters to preserve that building. So it needs a new roof, it needs paint, has broken windows. You know, it's kind of an amazing building from 1896 and has its own Wikipedia page, and it needs a lot of help. So I was going to ask if you would be willing to write, if anyone would be willing to write a letter of support that I could present with the grant the end of next month.
That's pretty easy to do, Mr. Russell. Just get a request into the city
Historical
clerk.
preservation grant.
Yes.
It'll be in competition with us.
Last year they gave out 4,000 grants. So
Yeah, I'm just,
we're all in this together.
so I leave it to the
Yeah,
body.
I think I would just submit your request for information, kind of what you're looking at doing to the city clerk, and then we can go from there.
Okay. Okay, I will do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sons of Norway.
Any public comment online?
They're kind of the fire department.
Okay, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move on to the first action item this evening, which is Resolution 6179, intent to hold a public hearing for the State Local Infrastructure Partnership Act of 2023, otherwise known as House Bill 355. Mr. Russell, presentation?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, we had this topic at our work session last week, just to kind of go over the program and the details of it. Really, our next formal step is to hold a public hearing. Then, following the public hearing, We'll have an action item for council to identify priorities that we would then submit to the State Department of Commerce for their State Local Infrastructure Protection Act funds. So this just sets the date of that public hearing for February 5th.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate the email about the sidewalks that can be included. If I wanted to include that in the list that's part of the public hearing, is that something I need to motion for part of this?
Well, so we came up to the December 31st with the solicitation. If you wanted to add that as a project, do it after the public hearing. You know, you talk about it during the public, you know, like I said, you've talked about it. You can amend that list through the discussion of the priority list. What you'd have to do is identify a project. So I'm not sure what you're looking for. You know, most of the sidewalks in town, you know, what would you select? How would you go about that? What would you propose? And then that's going to be a topic for the body, like just the same way it would be, you know, in terms of if we went forward with a program on lead line replacement, what's that program going to be? You know, if you just want to add it to our current sidewalk share program, great. If you want to actually replace it, my question would be, how would you do that in an equitable fashion? But in terms of the program, you identify projects by the 31st for this next step, but that doesn't mean you can't amend to add those in later from it.
Okay, so the amendment would be after the public hearing?
Yeah, so yeah, it's because the public hearing's together input from the public, but then you deliberate and you prioritize based on all factors considered. And so,
All right.
yeah, that would be how that would go.
So if I wanted a recommendation from staff in terms of our top priority of sidewalks that need replacing in the community based on any kind of assessment maybe we have, is that something so that at the time of the hearing and making an amendment, there's some information there, input from staff in terms of what that might look like?
Yeah, and you know, we have a fairly decent assessment of condition that they identified. But we would probably look at like from school district out. But again, what I would caution council on is how are you gonna do that in an equitable fashion? If you replace X amount of existing sidewalk, then what's that next one that, you know, we may get a complaint in, send them you need to replace this on the property owners, because that's the current program is property owners are replacing it. Even our sidewalk cost share program, it's still the responsibility of the property owner to replace. So that's just something to think about as you discuss it and look for that equity component.
Sure.
But if you said you want to apply it to condition that is most effective, and we can have that discussion even there of where it'd be and where it hit to identify, you know, any stretch, under what parameters, condition, utility, close to schools, whatever. We can have that discussion if that's what you want to put it toward.
Okay. Thank you.
Pardon the question, but we go into public hearing. Mr. Hunter could excuse himself from the dais and represent himself as a member of the public and give comment and then sit down in the seats.
Yeah, that's certainly, you
We've
can
seen
do
that
that.
before.
Yeah, it's not
I
required.
think Mr. Klusner's done that before, just more for show than anything, but
Well, I
I
won't
think he
speak
was
to
wearing
that.
heels that day, so he wanted to show how tall he was.
But you know, that's the purpose of public hearings, is to get feedback on the proposed, and you get potential alternate ideas
Right.
that carry over into the discussion framework. 'Cause I thought about that as well, that came up, but in terms of, like I say, the framework within there is, again, this was a program that was designed to be county solicitation of applications by the 31st. They changed it to the municipal component. We gathered them off our current CIP and needs within there, brought them forward. Discussion can go anywhere as far as I'm concerned on where it's at. Like I say, the projects that we put were not a priority. Those were just ones that were out of our capital improvement plan or identified as upcoming needs within that. And say, but if that's where council wants to go, just give us some parameters. But I would just have to think about what's that going to mean in terms of utility and equity.
Mr. Graham?
Ryan, I missed something somewhere. I didn't get an email or anything, so I don't know what was your amendment you
It
were
was
thinking.
Doug's reply to the email with the questions from Monday night where we asked about, and he replied with my question about can we lobby or can we endorse? And then the
Oh.
second paragraph was about Mr. Hunter's question.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, ask
I
a
can- I
question
can
if,
go back and read it, though.
if sidewalk replacement was eligible. And, well, it doesn't say sidewalk, it doesn't say a lot of things, but it's definitely, I think, fit into the public ground.
Oh, okay.
You know, my question was an ownership thing, related to it. Because, you know, we had looked at if we needed trail rehabilitation, which I mean, fits right in. Sidewalks are kind of that quasi component where it's the responsibility of the adjacent property owner, unless of course the property owner is a city. But it's in the public right of way, which to me says a public ground. So I think it'd be eligible, and the worst thing you could do is, if that's where council wants to go, is reject that application and say no, because you say give out a priority list, and then Department of Commerce reviews it to give the final stamp before distribution of funds.
Any other questions? Any public comment? Is there anyone online? One person. I bet I know who it is. Look to council for a motion. Mr. Dowd.
Your Honor, I move resolution number 6179, a resolution of intent calling for a public hearing regarding the eligible projects to be partially funded by the State Local Infrastructure Partnership Act of 2023, SLIPA, and the City of Kalispell.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Gabriel. Any discussion on the motion? Have a roll call vote.
Counselor Graham,
Aye.
Counselor Dowd,
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman.
Aye.
Counselor Fisher,
Aye.
Counselor Hunter,
Aye.
Counselor Nunley,
Aye.
Counselor Carlson,
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle.
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion carries. Next item is Resolution 6180, adjustments to the West Side Urban Renewal Core Area Tax Increment Financing and the Downtown Kalispell Tax Increment Financing Assistant Programs. This item considers increasing financing assistant limits within these TIF districts. Mr. Russell?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, again, this was brought up last meeting in terms of the adjustments being recommended by the West Side Urban Renewal, and I'll just go ahead and turn it over to Director of Development Services, Jared Nygren, to give the staff report and the recommendation from the URA.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Resolution 6180 is pretty straightforward amendment. It doesn't make any narrative changes of such. It's just amending the dollar values that would be eligible for TIF funding. It doesn't automatically guarantee TIF funding. An application would still have to go through the URA and ultimately City Council for approval. But given the current economic conditions and costs, if you look at some of the dollar amounts as, you know, really maximum dollar amounts as before, the program just really wasn't going to fit the need. You know, for example, street tree placement program grant increase of $5,000, you know, just the price of trees have gotten to the point where that probably wouldn't even be enough to entice anybody to use the program. So the Urban Renewal Agency did do a work session and also is recommending approval of all the increases. In general, most of the increases are roughly 100%, although some of the loan program increases, and once again, those are loans, not grants, you know, increase more than that. But yeah, the Urban Renewal Agency would recommend approval, just hoping to utilize the program more effectively and keep it up to date with current conditions, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Any public comment? Look to council for a motion. Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move resolution number 6180, a resolution amending the expenditure limits of the Downtown Kalispell Tax Increment Financing Assistance Program and the City of Kalispell West Side Urban Renewal Core Area Tax Increment Financing District Assistance Program as recommended by the City of Kalispell Urban Renewal Agency. Second.
Second. Motion second by Ms. Carlson. Discussion on the motion. Have a roll call vote.
Counselor Graham,
Aye.
Counselor Dowd,
Aye.
Counselor Dahlman. Aye. Counselor Fisher,
Aye.
Counselor Hunter,
Aye.
Counselor Nunley,
Aye.
Counselor Carlson,
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye, motion carries. City manager report, Mr. Russell.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, a couple things. First off, and actually, so we're getting in the, it just turned into January. We're going to be starting some of our budget meetings coming up. We'll have a review of the solid waste business plan that's been undergoing, just kind of an update and get some guidance from council on a few things. Also, already looking up at review of street assessment into
Did you
February.
invite the
so-
governor?
Did not invite the governor.
I will.
So just letting you know that we'll be starting working in some budget meetings into the work sessions here. The following Monday, the 29th, is the fifth Monday, so we'll not plan on meeting on that one. The final item, I've discussed this before. It's the regional opioid governance structure. I had mentioned at the last meeting, we're having a meeting with the county, and like I said, we dispersed our direct allocation of opioid settlement funds to the county and the health department for our co-responder program. But through those settlement agreement, there's also distribution to the state. I know they've already received $9 million. I'm suspecting they received more, but I don't know that for sure. And they're going to distribute that money to regions. And there's like 5 or 6 regions across the state, plus metro regions. So we're in a region with Flathead County. The city of Kalispell and Flathead County are the only 2 entities for that region that has to create a governance structure. Create a governance structure basically to review applications that the state trust receives. They review them, make sure they fit, then they'll send them down to this local governance structure where they would then basically make recommendations or select those applications based on whatever criteria they develop. And then funding would go directly from the state to those applicants. What we need to do is create a governance structure. And I sent out Yellowstone County's governance structure, which was made up of 7 members, 5 members of staff between Yellowstone County and the city of Billings, and then 2 health professionals. There are no parameters on how that is. It's really a body making funding grant recommendations essentially to local communities. So, I honestly, as we were looking at it, and I met with the county administrator and the health department director, we were just kind of at a loss of what makes the best one. When making decisions like that, to me, I always want to push that up to the elected officials. But, that's kind of why I wanted to bring it here to get guidance from the council on who you think would be best, the makeup for that committee. I think they try and meet, I think Yellowstone County was there, going to meet like quarterly to try and go through that. So timeliness perspective from that, I get it, why Yellowstone County may have put staff on it, but hey, I'm happy to take it back to those discussions if, we want to put council members on there. I leave it to the body to, if there's any specific direction or guidance you want me to take, knowing that it'll all be part of a discussion. One of the challenges is if, we put 3 council members on and then you have 3 county commissioners, well, that becomes a county commission meeting. So that's one of the challenges Flathead County would have in respect to that. Potentially make a recommendation that the health department goes through them, it kind of fits in with some of their programming. Don't know if they're necessarily willing to take that on or not, but, we could have that as a potential recommendation. So just seeing if there's any guidance from this body before I go into any further discussions with the county.
Thank you. I would strongly suggest, a mental health professional, addiction service professional be on that board, of course, just like we have this example from Yellowstone. I think that's really important. I mean, I'm assuming that that's where we're heading.
I think that makes perfect sense. Again, I'm wide open to any suggestions.
Like specific names of
No. Like, I mean, what do you want the makeup to be? Do you want it to, do you want us to identify and put staff on it? Do you want to appoint members of the council on it? Health professionals, probably a good idea. Happy to take that back.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would agree. I think, makeup that of the people with the most knowledge on the subject, right? And so that's going to be health department staff. I would recommend social service agency staff, maybe somebody from the criminal justice community, whether that's law enforcement or public defenders. And then, yeah, maybe a staff member.
So go the same route Yellowstone County did in Billings.
Carrie?
I spent 10 years in drug and alcohol prevention with kids in the valley, and at the time I was involved with that, I've been out of it now for about 7 years or so. So there was a very strong local coalition of people from all those different areas. So police was involved from all the different cities. Mental health professionals were involved, addiction counselors were involved, the health department was involved. So what I would suggest we do is check with the local prevention specialists and find out if there is still a group like that. I don't know if there's several have disbanded, so I don't know who's still in place. But it used to be the Chemical Dependency Clinic on Meridian now has a different name, and it used to all be based there. And I don't know how much of that has changed, but I think that's a really good place to start and ask if there is still a group already involved, and maybe some people in those coalitions would have further suggestions. But I think it'd be good to have elected people on it in a very limited capacity, maybe a couple, so we don't run into that. Because if somebody does need to do any lifting on up, they could certainly help with that, but that's my 2 cents worth.
Sam, did you have?
Carrie pretty much hit what I was gonna say.
Jeff?
Thank you. I mean, we've got some great service providers here in our community, like CryJ, Performing Center. I'm sure they are full of ideas. Thank you. Full of ideas or suggestions for something like that. Is that an available avenue to pursue, seeking help from our community service providers?
Well, what I'm hearing is kind of following the model of Billings,
Yeah.
which used specialists in the field. You're probably going to want a tie-in, this is a local governance structure by the entities. So you're probably going to have one representation from both the county and the city on there. So it looks like the Yellowstone model, being able to find that out. And obviously we've got the health department that is involved with all those different entities as well. So like I said, I think that's decent guidance in terms of that. I wanted to bring it out to see if it was a matter of, no, we want 3 council members on there, make this. So good enough. I will take the feedback back to the meetings with the county and see if we can put something together. Eventually the MOU will come back before you, but just wanted to get some guidance if there's any strong feelings one way or the other. And so that's pretty much all I need.
Okay. Anything from council? I'm just gonna start, Mr. Dowd, do you have any? Nothing. Mr. Fisher, Mr. Hunter? Nothing. Anything else? No? Oh,
I'll just quickly say, thank you, Chief. Had great response from the police department this weekend down to the fairgrounds where we had a couple of buildings that sprung a leak with all of this. So thank you for your guys coming down, professional. Once we got there, they came back, checked on us, made sure we were okay. So it was very good. I would just take that to the next step of remind everyone that we've got a big snow coming and drive careful and be safe.
okay. Anything else? couple items. One, kind of echoing that, I know Thursday through Friday and then Saturday, it was a little unnerving with the weather. And I think Flathead Electric, the linemen, all the people that work deserve acknowledgement. Just going out to shovel my driveway, I felt like I was taking my life into my own hands a few times. And these people go out and they make sure we have power so nothing bad happens to us. So I want to thank them for doing that. Also want to thank our service providers opening their doors, caring for the less fortunate during that time too, because during the day, there is nowhere to go with temperatures like this. Then the other couple things I just wanted to bring to the attention of council. I've been asked a couple different times to enter into the Maid versus state of Montana. This is the 382 bill where the LLC sued the state for 382 and whatever, their three numbers, whatever they were. And I talked with Doug. Doug, you talked with John a little bit about intervening, and essentially by intervening, we would become a party to the lawsuit. And don't know that we necessarily want to spend resources on that, but agreed that we get to that point. And I don't know if this is a point for an amicus brief. I think it might be on appeal, Jonna, but you could explain that. But one of the things I think, the question is, does this council support entering in with an amicus brief if appropriate at a point in time in this lawsuit? I'm still appalled by the fact that our legislature passed these bills that stripped away the voice of the public with anything that might happen with zoning, within their subdivisions, within their neighborhoods. And I think it's an important enough issue, but if wanted to explain a little bit of the difference between intervention and amicus brief, what it would look like, and then see if there's general council support if we get to that point.
Sure. So there's, under the rules of civil procedure, there's three different ways you could intervene. One is as a matter of right, one is a permissive intervention, the last one is as a government entity. I think you've got arguments there as to why you would be able to intervene potentially in any one of those three ways. That being said, you're then open to depositions, hearings, responding to every motion, possible travel to Bozeman, because that's where the district court is located, those types of costs, okay? With an amicus brief, we'd be looking at, depending on how this comes out, I think it's highly likely it's gonna get appealed to the Montana Supreme Court. If it does get appealed, that's when that brief would go in. It doesn't make us a party, it just makes us what they call friend of the court. Does that make sense?
So, thoughts, Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I would be opposed to participating in any way because I'm opposed to the lawsuit. I definitely have some concerns with some of the legislation that was passed. I think there's some contradictions in it that aren't great. It's a product of our legislative process where they rush through a ton of bills in a very short amount of time. And I think it's a lot of stuff, not just this legislation that comes out of Helena, is messy as a result. But that's certainly not a reason to overturn the legislation. That brings in a whole nother mess. I have problems with the public participation a little bit. I understand the purpose of it, and I think it's a good purpose. But I think rather than having cut out the public from the participation process, instead having it just more difficult for a governing body, the city council, to deny developments because of neighbor complaints or neighbor concerns. I would have liked a different solution to that. But I see this legislation, one, as being motivated by not my backyard sentiments, which I'm very much opposed to, and which I think is very much kind of what has led to the legislation in the first place. But also because I see it, and I'm not an attorney here, but just my reading of the lawsuit, I see some real legal concerns in terms of how it would impact our ability to zone as a city. because one of the arguments it makes is that you can't have a zone next to a HOA, a neighborhood with an HOA, that zoning contradicts the HOA terms, which then allows the HOA terms to basically dictate to local government what zoning can be adjacent to that neighborhood, which I mean, I may be reading that wrong, but that's the way I read it. And I see that incredibly problematic and gutting actually city authority to zone. So, so I have a lot of problems with the lawsuit and would not want to participate in any way in it.
Mr. Miller?
Thank you, Your Honor. I think much like Ryan, I'm not an attorney. I slept at a Holiday Inn Express one time before. Would not think that that'd make me an attorney, but from what I've been able to see and read out of this, that I think I definitely would like to know more information about moving forward with this.
Mr. Graham?
Yeah, I agree with Councilman Nunley. I'm for moving forward, but moving forward maybe cautiously as to, how that looks getting into it. But I think it's very important because, there's anti-constitutional implications with, some of this stuff when it comes to people's, with their rights and everything. So, I'm not going to get into my whole thought on the whole spiel and everything, but from what I read on it, I can go, and we have stuff that we're going through on the planning board that's going to be in front of this council at some point that, kind of it is because of that I think is it's a bad product. So, but I want to be careful about how it moves forward, I guess. And I don't even know what that means. I'm not a lawyer, so, but I just don't want to just jump in.
Anything else? Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Do we know of other cities and where they're at on wanting to do something similar? Have we heard anything?
I'll definitely know more Thursday.
Okay.
Because the league on Thursday in our board meeting, one of the items is an update from the litigation committee, which it sounds like they're going to enter into, I'm presuming at this point, but it really indicates that they're going to recommend joining the lawsuit, intervening as the League of Cities and Towns in support of the law. And as I said, Mr. Hunter, I understand the NIMBYism comments. My biggest issue is when you take away my neighbor's voice or you take away my voice for a period of 5 years, I got a serious problem. The fact that I can't even come and stand at this dais and say, I got a real problem with this, here's what I'd like to see. We've seen some things adjusted in developments in Kalispell that have made things a better fit for the neighborhood through that public comment process. To take that away from people for a period of 5 years until you go to that next planning stage, to me is just a huge violation of my personal rights, my contract that I had with my neighbors, with my city when I bought according to the zoning that I had, that I feel strongly enough that the league shouldn't be taking this position. My question that's going to be at the board meeting is, who are you representing? You, the league, you as the executive director of the league, who helped write this stupid thing, or us as the cities who are representing people who speak to us? I live by that age-old paradigm in America. The best government is that government closest to the people. The minute you get one level above, it starts to get watered down. They start to lose touch with who are they really impacting within the cities, within the counties. And don't even get me started what happens when they get to DC. But it's going to be interesting to see where the league goes with that. And I feel strongly enough about it that if the league decides that they want to intervene, the group board, the board votes to do that, I may just resign from the League of Cities and Towns and ask someone from the council to step on because I cannot stand with an organization that wants to look at taking the voice away from the people. That's my frustrating part. The voice shouldn't just get heard once every 5 years. Anyway, but that's the whole other thing. It's not now, it would be on appeal where we could,
If you want to do your.
if we want to do an
amicus brief.
amicus brief.
With intervention, one of the requirements is that it's timely. So if you're wanting to go that route, time is of the essence there. The other thing I wanted to point out is with intervening in a lawsuit, sometimes the court will take into account whether or not the position that you're trying to put forward is already being addressed by one of the parties. So I can't say for sure that you would win on a motion to intervene.
Right.
Thanks.
And my thought is more of on appeal with that amicus brief.
Okay, well, that, I was saying to do it carefully and stuff, but I didn't understand that there was two different, one had to be right away if you're gonna get into it, and then the other one's amicus brief, so I think that's where you're leaning.
Yeah, I don't feel like having the city and join in a lawsuit and spend, I don't know how, it'd be basically a blank check, and I'm not willing at this point.
Yeah, right.
There's a lawsuit in place. To me, it would just be, where do we stand in position? If there's a decision made, if it gets appealed to the Supreme Court, what's our position as a council? Mr. Dowd, you had your
Oh,
hand
I just had an alternative solution to the entire deal is just to get rid of all zoning. I mean, put that at the end of the letter.
And roundabouts everywhere.
There you go. Welcome to Houston. Okay, last item, let's see. Oh, two more items. See, the governor's appointed as real estate or his tax task force. Looks like the normal, kind of the usual cast of characters that we normally see in here. Not going to name them, but I did find it interesting. Last I checked, we have a couple universities in the state. University of Montana, Montana State. Don't we hear from economists from University of Montana kind of on an annual basis up here in the valley? And he came and presented to us. Kind of a smart guy. You got it right there. And I know MSU has a business department. They have economics as a degree. But I just find it interesting that, I don't know, maybe you move from out of state to Montana. You feel like you got to go out of state to find experts. We have two economists, one from Arkansas, one from Indiana University. Evidently, we can't find the expertise in the state of Montana, so I'm sad to report about the sorry state of education in Montana. The governor couldn't find a smart economist. The last item, speaking of smart, I got this in the mail today, and it's an application to Harvard. Does anyone have a good essay they wrote to get into college? I need to borrow some. With that, we're adjourned.